Hi lovely friends, it's Margaret, and it's time for some one-star reviews. I hadn't drunk my tea yet, so it's here while I'm going to be reading the tea about these reviews that people have posted for my favorite books. That's right, I'm going to be reading one-star reviews of my favorite books. This is going to make my day interesting. Who do I want to do first? Let's start with a book that you guys might not have heard about. I don't think a lot of people have heard about. Well, I mean, you may have heard about this, but fewer people have heard about this book than her other books. We're going to start out with High Society by Allie Carter. I freaking love this series, and I'm going to get mad about this. How do I do this? Hold on, someone gave this 2 stars, but then said this book wasn't bad. That makes no sense. I'm not going to be able to screenshot these because they're not on my phone, but I'm going to read them out anyways. So let's see. This person rated it 1 star. Cover gushing worthiness. I like the cover of the hardcover version of his High Society, which is the one I have. Yes, that's because it looks fantastic. Do you see this? Do you see this? This is the best. And the version that they have here, I would give that 1 star too. The review is, if someone told me that purchasing High Society in hardcover for only $4 was a bargain, I would be inclined to agree with them. After all, the covers of the series are fun and glamorous in their own way. However, after reading the book, it is clear that High Society was neither worth my time or my money. This book is overhyped and it was disappointing. Overhyped? No one talks about this book. There is a reason that High Society only has 4 books and Allie is bitter about it, and that's because no one talks about it and no one bought it because they were all mad that the Gallagher Girls books weren't coming out as quickly as they wanted them to. After reading the synopsis, I was sold. How could I not be sold when there's globetrotting, a young girl who comes from a family of thieves, a gorgeous rich best friend, yes, and a great secondary cast? It has the makings of a perfect high society. Apparently, in my case, it was quite possible to be conned by the synopsis. This book was 57% of nothing happening, 5 chapters of a poorly written heist that was confusing to follow and bland characters. It disappoints to say all of this because this story had so much potential to be exceedingly better than it was. The plot could have been better and more fast-paced, the characters could have been developed better, and the love triangle could have been excluded. There was a love triangle? There was a love triangle? I mean, granted, it's been like a few years since I've read this book, but I don't remember there really being a love triangle. I think Kat might have been jealous at one point. Okay, I can understand the 57% of nothing happening. Granted, like I said, I haven't read this in a while, so I get that a lot of people, when they go into a heist story, they're expecting or they want most of the story to be about the heist. For me, the appeal of the heist story is how the characters get together and how they do all of the planning, which is a lot of this book. That's a lot of this book, is getting the characters together and doing the planning. And yes, the heist happens. I didn't think it was a terrible heist. I liked it. I enjoyed it because it's fictional. In regards to the plot, I kept on asking myself if there was one to begin with because there was a lot of globetrotting, and instead of doing any actual order to move the globetrotting is moving the story forward! As for the characters, Allie Carter didn't give me any good reasons as to why I should root for them in the first place. What this sounds like is this person just got a book they didn't want. The plot's not bad just because you don't like the characters or it's not quite what you were expecting. That just means that it wasn't the book you were expecting. It doesn't mean the plot was bad. Someone says this was so strange and uninteresting that I didn't even attempt to really read it after the first 30 pages or so. How do you know this? Don't come at me and tell me you weren't interested in the book. Okay, hold on. We're gonna revisit that in a minute. Okay. I skipped around 50 pages at a time just to see if it ever became interesting, but alas, this was just dull. How is it supposed to be interesting if you are missing half the plot? Like, listen, I can understand when you're like, you know what, the beginning didn't grip me, so I decided not to go through. But if you're going to go through the whole book and say it wasn't interesting because you weren't reading parts of the book? Anyways. This one says, 1.5 really. Okay, this is a book for the YA set, I get it. But as an adult, in age, not in spirit, I thought the author had a nice little concept. As an adult? Like, this idea that you can outgrow YA is frankly like just offensive to me. It's like, hey, there are things that are okay for kids to do, but then we have to be more sophisticated because we're adults. I'm sorry, good media can be made for any age. And a lot of the time, if it is good media, it's going to be good for everyone. That's why Disney has the dirty jokes in it, guys, because they know the parents are watching. I thought the author had a nice little concept until I read it. First off, the book wants to have all the adventure and fun of a race around the world. In my opinion, it fails. Yet I felt like I never left. Other than the page that says Paris or Las Vegas, there are no descriptions to back any of this up. Secondly, The author tries so damn hard to demonstrate her characters be so sophisticated, very well versed in art and in its history, and yet their vocabulary, actions, dress, even enough of the shirt skirt already we get it barely covers her ass. Thought processes are very young and dumb. Because they're, what, 16? Because they're 16! You're reading a book about teenagers. They're going to be, what was it? Yes. Their actions, vocabulary, and dress are going to be those of 16-year-olds. Lastly, I hated the way the story dumbed itself down. It's like these kiddos can handle Nazi Germany, but an art heist is beyond the scope of their limited minds. Grr. I wish there was something here I could recommend, but I can't. At what point did they face off with Nazi Germany? And if I recall correctly, the heist went off. Now, granted, they do some Nazi bashing, lots of it. This part of one of the reasons I enjoy it, but they pull the heist off. They manage it. Guy, spoiler alert, by the way. Okay. I'm still boggled by this idea that number one, YA is something that adults don't enjoy. It's too unsophisticated for them. Number two, the idea that teenagers should not be immature. Listen, okay, here's the thing. Somebody made a point on Twitter to stop calling, 12-year-olds immature, but they are. That's the whole point. They should be allowed to be immature because they're 12. Same thing with 16-year-olds. I mean, I would expect more from a 16-year-old than a 12-year-old, but, they should be allowed to be teenagers because they're 16. If you're mad that they are 16 in a book that you're reading, why? Do you get mad at real 16-year-olds for being 16? If you do, I'm concerned for your 16-year-olds. The next one that we're going to do is When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. So this one starts out, oh my god, you guys, I know people have said this book is bad. I know pretty much every source I trust full on hated this book, but wow. Do you ever read a book and you're impressed by how bad it is? This one is genuinely written in the hopes of creating more diversity in the young adult genre, and look at that. Girl hate. Wowie. Almost enough to make me laugh. If I weren't already crying from hopelessness, depressed with the irrefutable knowledge that young adult literature will be teeming with ingrained sexism from now on until the end of time, and no amount of angry quoting in ranty one-star reviews will change that. Nothing matters. Let's get to it. Here's my thing when we get into the hating on the not like other girls trope. I understand that in many cases it's used to look down on other girls. It's like, I'm not like those girls because those girls are the stupid girls. But at the same time, you have to understand when you're talking about a girl who's a nerd, a girl who's in a culture, especially a girl who is in a culture where there are certain specific expectations set on her, and she is defying those expectations, it's not always a positive thing when you're thinking, I'm not like other girls. It's not always that you're putting them down. It's, I don't measure up. I am different. It's a defense mechanism sometimes. Someone just wrote an entire whole rant review defending their review. What? I'm sorry, you have an anime icon as your icon. You want me to take you seriously and actually think that you're a serious reviewer? No. Oh, here's somebody who says, DNF at 45% or something. Great, as if all of my anticipated reads weren't disappointing. Why? She's going on about the other books she DNF. Thank God that disappointment is not as a big-ass bitch like Dimple Shaw. Also, thank God I am not a cheese fat guy like Rishi Patel. Cheese fest guy like Rishi Patel. Guys, it's a romance. Of course it's going to be a cheese fest. What are you expecting? That one's not in English. So this person rated it 1 star because first off, this book is just about 2 people falling in love. It's a romance. There isn't much plot otherwise, which is totally fine. I like romance books, but this was marketed to be more than just a romance. Where? When? At what point? So to me, it failed on that level. But again, my full rating is not because it's just a romance. I love romance. Something about this book I loved was all the kissing. Only all the kiss scenes got old after a while because they were all described the same way. They began to blur together, which wasn't a good thing. Something else I loved about this book was seeing the Indian culture. I love reading about other cultures because it's like I'm getting to travel to all the places that I want to go, but I never really have the money to go. Rishi, I actually like him. He could be whiny at times, but I still like him. Yeah, because he's a teenager. Teenagers are whiny. He was sweet, cute, and could be, and I just loved it. I felt his struggle, wanting to make his parents proud of him, but also wanting to do his own thing. Dimple, she is the real reason for my waiting. Why is everyone hating on Dimple? She made me want to rip my book into pieces and burn it with fire. She's so mean to her parents when they only want what they think is best for her. I get it, she doesn't want what they want for her, but they aren't coming from a mean place, so her attitude towards them in the beginning bothered me. I hated how she looked down on her friend because she had money and didn't have to go through... Okay, that sentence ended. Where nothing left. Dimple assumed she had the harder life. Okay, I don't remember that plot point, so I can't comment on that, but like... Have you ever met a teenager? Have you ever? Were you a teenager at some point in your life? I'm like... Teenagers are really mean to their parents when they don't like what their parents are doing, especially when there is a clash in values with the parent. She was so judgy about others who wanted to wear makeup and cared about their clothes. It was a plot point. It came off to me that she thought she was better because she didn't. Newsflash, you're not better than anyone else just because they wear makeup and you don't. Then how she treated her roommate's friends. Nope, just couldn't take her. Her roommate's friends were trash. Were her roommate's friends trash? Someone in this book was trash, and I remember not really liking them and feeling like Dimple was justified for not liking them. I love parts of her character, but how she took crap from no one. Yes, that's a good point. How she was going hard for her dreams. Those were the wonderful parts of her character. I loved it, but it doesn't exclude her other accents. Yeah, whatever. I don't know. Maybe I just see things differently when people are doing things like the things people are talking about in this review. Maybe I just see that differently. Maybe I kind of look at why the character is doing it and less at the action. Okay, so I think it's time for me to get really frustrated and go see what people have to say about A Darker Shade of Magic. Let's see if we can find some that aren't like an essay's worth of review. Guys, give me just something short and punchy that I can be mad about. Ooh, as a pre-warning, this is not a kind review. This should be fun. Yep, right off the bat, I've been sitting here all morning thinking about what to do about this book. As stated previously, I just don't have patience for Lila, but I wasn't and am still not sure about whether I'm officially DNFing this or if I am just putting it on hold. Everyone who saw my status updates for this novel knows that I wasn't really enjoying myself reading it, but I wasn't ready to write it off yet. But I realized just now that I don't want to pick it up. I support that. If you don't want to pick a book up, don't pick the book up. Just DNF it. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Here's the thing with Victoria Schwab. She has talent. There's no doubt about it. She can write. But for me, I find everything she writes dull as hell. I do not understand this. There were a couple of cases, Vish's This Savage Song, where the slow writing was alright because her characters are so perfect. But every other book by her I've read, which I've actually tried everything she's published except The Near Witch, has been dreadfully boring. There's something missing in her novels for me, some sort of life and excitement that I'm just not finding between the pages of these novels. Where this leaves me with her future novels, I'm not sure. She has such creative stories that I will likely always reach for her books, but in the future I think I'll be using the library for this. That being said, I think Lila is the sole reason I couldn't do this book. I just want to violently swear about her for this entire review, but rather than do something that immature, I just want to say she is the most insufferable, childish, spoilish, stuck-up, conceited piece of crap I've ever read about. Guys, again, plot point. I'm gonna just say that a lot here. I am one who did not see the similarities between this and Mistborn. Lila and Vin are basically the same character? Like, kind of, sort of, literally. Oh, okay, but I seem to hate Lila just about the same amount that I hate Vin, so it's almost fitting. You like Kaz Brecker! You're into Kaz Brecker scooping people's eyeballs out, but when Lila is selfish and wants to do what she wants and look out for herself because no one has ever looked out for her in her life, when she's that way, you're mad about it! I just can't imagine reading like 1,700 plus pages about this ridiculously stupid character, and I'm sorry to all the people who did despite finding her absolutely annoying. I was interested in Kel, but he seemed to come with Lila attached to his back. Yes, because they're perfect for each other. I decided I just don't care. Holland is fascinating. Oh, of course you're a Holland stan. And I just hope he has a happy ending. Won't spoil that for you. Reese was too detached for me to care. We don't see Reese, of course he... So overall, I just don't care for this. I love the action and was super compelled by her writing, aka I didn't find it boring. You just spent like 2 paragraphs talking about how boring the book was. But the characters, just one, let's be real, killed it for me. Okay, we're putting the computer down for this. One of the reasons that I have such an issue when people are talking about the fact that they don't like Lila Bard is because I see them then standing Kaz Brecker and the Darkling and Kylo Ren. How are you standing these evil people? They're not all evil. Kaz has his reasons. But, like, you have all of these characters who are doing the wrong things for selfish reasons, and, like, when you have a girl that's like that, you get mad about it. And I'm just like, maybe let girls be selfish sometimes. This one's a decently short one. Another reviewer mentioned that this book felt like a play for a movie deal. It does big time. Oh, but where is the movie deal, guys? Where is the movie deal? Is there a movie deal? Not as far as I know. It feels like a terribly written action movie. Oh, is there any other kind? One-dimensional characters, a somewhat interesting concept, action scenes with just enough dialogue in between to keep pushing the plot forward. Did we read the same book? The author is primarily a young adult. fiction writer, which doesn't mean she can't make the leap to fantasy or adult fiction, but she certainly doesn't feel ready for it. I feel like well-done YA fiction on occasion. I like well-done YA fiction on occasion, but as I looked through Schwab's work, there was nothing that I would ever pick up as an adult reading YA. Teenagers don't necessarily notice that their YA fiction isn't fully fleshed out. Oh, fully fleshed. Fully fleshed. They didn't even finish the phrase. That the characters lack depth, but writing for adults changes the game a bit. Can we stop sneering at YA? Can we stop acting like you are better for reading adult books instead of YA books? Can we stop this? Let's finish this. At about 100 pages, I looked at how many pages have gone by, and I thought, wow, I feel like I should know more about the characters and the world. At 200 pages in, I was completely disinterested in the characters and the unoriginal storyline. Have you never read a Brandon Sanderson novel in your life? Have you never read Robert Jordan? I don't have any Brandon Sanderson novels, but they're like this thick. Robert Jordan, it takes at least 100 pages in Eye of Time, Eye of the World, whatever you call that book. I've read it, I know. It takes at least that much time to get to even the plot. It's all build up. And this random, really weird prologue that made me really concerned because there was a dude that killed his wife. And I'm just like, how am I supposed to root for this dude if he's killed his wife? Like, people want to act like adult fiction is so highbrow. And a lot of the time what you have with adult fiction, especially adult fantasy, is you have this bloated junk. Not that Robert Jordan or Brandon Sanderson write bloated junk. But I've read stuff where it is a 600-page novel that could have been 397 pages. Anyways, I won't be continuing the series with high low face that these would improve over time. Number one, this series only gets better over time, my friend. Number two, you just don't like YA fiction, and you're snooty about it. Here's one star. To be fair, I didn't finish the book. I got about 30 to 40% and decided I couldn't make it. I just didn't enjoy the plot at all, which, again, valid move. If you're not enjoying the plot for a book, put it down. You do not have to force yourself to finish reading it. The setup of the different Londons was different and cool, I suppose. Yes, amen. I'm curious about some things that were hinted about in the past, like Kel's background and more details about Black London. You're gonna be disappointed. I just don't care what is happening in the present time, and I don't want to suffer through to get a few answers. Too much blah, 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 and not enough things happening that's interesting next book. So one review says there are too many action scenes, and this one says there's not enough. People make it make sense. One more so I can get super angry. More like a blander shade of boring. Yes, I had to go there and say that. Hear me out. It takes the plot 100 pages to get something that could be promising. Oh my gosh! It's a book! It takes pages to get into the plot! And then another 100 in spare change for more of a conversation that was unevenly set up to begin with to finally happen. That's typically how things happen in books. Usually there's a reason that someone's going to win. Then once that long-awaited event occurs, one of the heroes actually goes and says this to the one. Okay, I agree. Kel saying your plan failed was a little on the nose and more like a supervillain monologue. I get that. Okay, I can agree with that one. Really, who writes that with a straight face anymore? You know what? She wrote a book and you didn't, so who are you to criticize her? I'm assuming this person hasn't written a book because I don't see, they don't have their full name on Goodreads. You know what that is? That is the equivalent of using the evil emoji unironically, which incidentally the villains of the story probably do. Because they're the villains. Of course they would do that. That, in fact, is the single biggest problem I have with this book as a whole. While the heroes did show some signs of nuance, just some and faint ones at that, the villains were so mind-numbingly cartoonish in their stabs at evil that I couldn't take any of their evil plans seriously. Adding disappointing insult to that lackluster injury is the fact that the author's main tactic for showing the morality of minor characters consisted solely of attempts at sexual violence towards the lady hero. Wow, such gritty, much developed. I mean, that's kind of how people act with women. I think Victoria Schwab was actually trying to make a point with that, but also that one's up to interpretation. While the premise, parallel worlds connected by a single magical city, is intriguing, the sloppy execution and one-dimensional characterization. I need to ask some of y'all what you think good characterization is, because I'm confused. I am confusion. I gave this 2 stars stars initially because I was happy to have finally finished slogging through it, but after writing this review, I'm downgrading it to 1.5. Obviously have more negative things to say about it than positive. Okay, fine. I think I have ranted as much as I can about why people don't like this book and about these reviews, but some of the things they're saying about this you would not be saying if this was Terry Goodkind. At least Victoria Schwab isn't having her female characters get almost raped every other scene and have violence inflicted upon them. And yeah, I could, Anyways. Alright, so we're gonna go with one that is probably, I know that this is gonna give me some good controversial stuff because I know that there are a lot of people, and there are valid reasons for disliking it, because I know one of the main reasons people don't like this book is because of the insta-love. And in my opinion, it just was so well paced that it didn't feel insta-lovey, but that is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I adored this book. It almost made me cry. That's not something that books do very often. There are too many gifts in this review for me to take it seriously, I'm sorry. Here's one, DNF at 29%. I was excited for this book, I won't lie. However, the characters are so bland. What? I understand the point is that they're both immigrants. I think that's supposed to see or such, but I just didn't like either Natasha or Daniel. I'm not even able to do a full review full of quotes because nothing was wrong with the writing. This just wasn't a book that interested me. I may go back to it one day though. Edit. I am definitely in the minority with this opinion as well, but I just couldn't put myself through the blank characters to get to the heartwarming stuff. That's like 2 shades away from this person of color was not relatable. Like 2 shades away from that, guys. Really do better. DNF. I'm pretty sure my day would have been 100% better if I didn't try this book. My comments as I read this book that sum up my feelings. 2%. Why is this girl explaining who Nirvana and Kurt Cobain are? Maybe because people might not know who Nirvana and Kurt Cobain are. 12%. I am already so done with the beep pronunciations of Korean words and then the most stereotypical Asian accent in the world being used for the mom like this. No thanks. Okay. That does bug me when I read books, or I am assuming they are listening to this as an audiobook, and I can't tell from the picture, but this might be an Own Voices reviewer, or a Korean reviewer, but like, I have that problem when I listened to, I mean, I hate the narrator for the Percy Jackson books anyways, but when I listen to Titan's Curse, they use the most stereotypical accent for Annabeth's stepmom, and I'm like, why does she have an Asian accent when there are so many Asian Americans that were born here and grew up here? They've been here for a while. It is not new to have people of Asian descent in the United States. So why are we using this accent for? Why do we do this when we're doing audiobooks with every Asian character? I kind of agree with that. 17% is why is every religious person in a book always crazy and pushy? No comment. Also, why we gotta have such unnecessary generalization of groups of people. If I'm thinking of the generalizations that I'm thinking of, again, it was a plot point. So, 18%, well, the actual beep was that line. She would already be dreaming of little half-Asian American, she would already be dreaming about little half-Asian, half-African-American babies. Like, who thinks of this shit? That's assuming so many things about this girl you don't know at all. I don't remember that part, but that's a problem. Okay, I can't even, like, be mad about this review because she has valid points. No, just no, this person says. If this book wanted to make me believe in falling in love with someone in a few hours and then no one ever comparing to that person even 10 years later, it sadly failed. Everything felt unrealistic. I believe you can find the one and know that you're meant to be with that person, but it takes time, a 5-day minimum at least, not 12 hours. I mean, I can't argue with that because realistically, you're right. You're right. I don't believe in love at first sight. I believe in like at first sight and lust at first sight and wanting to know someone at first sight. I believe that you can fall in love with the idea of someone at first sight. Been there, done that multiple times. However, it's fiction. Things that's the thing that's funny to me is people can deal with the idea of dragons existing. We can deal with the fact that this dude can turn into a wolf. Like, we're okay with that. But when it comes to insta-love, that doesn't exist. There's no some enchanted evening for people. Like, okay, I get it. Like, sometimes insta-love is done really, really badly. You're right. But sometimes it's done really, really well. This whole thing read like Where She Went by Gail Forman. Everything happened so quickly and didn't seem plausible. Have I read Where She Went? Is that the sequel to If I Stay? Because if it is, I loved it, and I don't like you. DNF couldn't get into the book and connect with the characters. I wonder if that had anything to do with the fact that it is a black girl and a Korean-American boy. I wanted to like this book, and while it was cute, it just wasn't for me at all. I can respect that. Nicola Yoon did write well. I might try out everything. She also brought attention to deporting and immigrants. It was very fun to read about those details. Overall, this book just wasn't enough. I find that YA romance is too light. There's nothing actually there. We're saying that about a book that tackles really serious subjects. So what do you mean there's nothing there? You literally just said that she brought attention to deportation and immigrants. I closed the books feeling empty instead of feeling excited about the story. I'll admit that I did ship Natasha and Daniel. The ending made my heart happy, but I also wanted them to stay where they were. Anyways, I'm gonna stop here because I don't want to rant. Everything that they said in that review, that shouldn't be a 1-star review. That should be 3 stars at least. Like, I feel like 3 stars is just kind of basically, this was a book, it wasn't terrible. That's what 3 stars is. This book fulfilled the things that a book does. Like, you're sitting there talking about the fact that it had good subject matter, bringing attention to deporting and immigrants, and that you liked the characters, but you're still giving it a 1 star. Give me some reasons for it to be a 1 star. Let's see. Okay, I actually hate this book. This was metaphorical bark the whole time. Such cliche, insta-love, fakeness that plagues all the current contemporaries. Maybe you just don't like contemporaries. The only reason I gave it this 1 is because A, I can't give it anything less. Haha, there needs to be a 0 rating. I agree, but not for those reasons. I agree because sometimes there's racist trash, and I would love to give those books 0 ratings. Yep. B, the ending was actually okay. Which is the most positive word I can give it. I don't want to spoil this for anyone, but the ending was realistic. And C, I like the narration style whenever we were introduced to a chapter that wasn't Natasha or Daniel. The next chapter was dedicated to explain that person, which I find interesting because as a psych student, I love knowing why people do things. Otherwise, I hated this book so much, I'm never going to read a contemporary again in a long time. I'm never going to read a contemporary in a long time. Okay. Maybe you just don't like contemporaries, honey. Maybe they're just not for you. Maybe you should find something else to read. All right, y'all, let's do this. The last one is going to be The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. If you couldn't tell, I have tabbed it up. It is, I just finished reading it. I love it. I'm ready to get mad. I'm ready. I am so ready. I've got my tea. I'm gonna take a big old sip of it. It's gotten cold as I filmed, which is sad. Be prepared for me to get mad that people are saying that a 12-year-old shouldn't be acting the way a 12-year-old acts. This person apparently has been getting crap for their 1-star rating. Says, that's it, I've had my fill of too many stupid brain cell destroying comments posted on this review in the past few months asking me to write a best-selling book before attempting to take apart Rick Riordan's writing. I mean, yeah, you should. As the exclusive privilege of negatively criticizing a book is according only to published writers and not ordinary reviewers, readers. I can't agree that. You should. I do have the right to record my feelings about my book. You do. And it's such a shame that I'm actually being forced to put up this edit to make people aware of this fact. If this review hurts your sentiments as a fan, I am sorry. I can't help you there. You must grow up and learn to let dichotomous opinions coexist in harmony on the same page. That's it. Caution, brutal honesty ahead. Really at the expense of having to respect someone else's views. I want to say something about what that sounds like or what kind of person that sounds like, but I'm not going to. We won't bring that into this. What a feeble attempt at recreating the Harry Potter magic. Please tell me in what way do you get a Harry Potter vibe from Percy Jackson? Aside from being highly unoriginal and unimaginative, the book grates on your nerves due to the frequency of Percy's lame attempts at sounding witty. He is witty, guys! There's a reason we call him Persassy, hon. Seriously, am I supposed to laugh at his observations on the bull man and barnyard animals? He's 12! Those are the observations a freaking 12-year-old makes! Not only did the writer not bother racking his brains to come up with a plot or a proper story, what did I read then? Choosing instead to recycle key elements of the Harry Potter series. Okay, so let's talk about tropes, guys. There's this trope, oh my god, called the Chosen One trope. And it has all of these key elements that you find in Harry Potter because it is a freaking trope. Harry Potter's not original. You can literally go through the library and find them everywhere. Harry Potter didn't invent the trope. Might have been the first one to be blatantly like, this is the Chosen One trope, but he didn't invent it. Not only did the writer not bother racking his brains to come up with a plot or a proper story, lies, choosing instead to recycle key elements of the Harry Potter series, but he also ignored important aspects of a fantasy novel, one of which is the language. You wanted Rick Riordan to come up with a specific language? I don't know. To call the narration just bad will be an understatement. Same can be said about the dialogue and the way the plot progresses. It's one cliched event unfolding after another. The only novel thing about this book is the seamless integration of Greek mythology into a fantasy-based setup. It's not really fantasy. I mean, it is fantasy, but it's not quite like high fantasy. The 1 star is for that. And so I would like to put a premature end to my review because I just realized the futility of writing one of a book I hated. There are literally, once you get outside of the whole Chosen One thing, literally 0 parallels between this book and Harry Potter. Well, okay, they both have dark hair, but still, like, my friend. Also, Rick Riordan's language and writing is so freaking clever. Like, I am blown away by it every time. He does, his voice in this novel is flawless. Granted, I have a few issues with some of his descriptions because they're fatphobic, but, like, he grows out of that, so I can forgive him for it. Oh, this we're gonna have, was forced to read this lame American ripoff of Harry Potter for my children's lit course. Almost everything about it irritated me deeply. The cheesy humor, it's middle grade. Percy's effortless awesomeness and lack of any actual character depth or personality. Perseus Jackson is one of the most emotionally intelligent characters I have ever read. If you go through this book, and it takes a couple of times to actually notice it because you're not thinking about that, but if you go through this book, you will see time and time and time again that he is noticing the emotions of other characters, that he is noticing how other people are affected, and he is using that in his quest. He is sweet, he is kind, he hates the fact that he is breaking the rules. Like, how many rule breakers do you see that hate that they have to break the rules? The concept of the inborn knowledge, like understanding ancient Greek, the constant info dumps from other characters explaining things to Percy. You just described so much fantasy led by male characters, because it happens all the freaking time. So I get that it's a little annoying, but at the same time, there's a precedent for it. And how many times did Rick Riordan want to put ugliness equals evil point? I mean, okay, there's a little bit of a point there. Every single time the stereotypically and pointless evil Aries group were mentioned, the word ugly is used to describe them. Even if a cheer went up from their table, it was an ugly cheer. I know which part you're talking about because I just read this book, and they were being ugly. They were being ugly. Percy's smelly stepdad's Gabe's surname is Ugliano. Oh yes, very subtle. It's middle grade. It doesn't have to be subtle. I wanted to get a pen and paper and start running tally of the obvious Harry Potter references. What? I won't list them because there are too many to count, but my favorite was when one of our teachers actually said to him, Percy Jackson, our little celebrity. That's the one you're gonna highlight? Is that the closest, the best you could do? How about this? And now before you jump on my case, 1 star simply means I didn't like it. The 2 stars is it was okay, which is not accurate to my feelings. The Lightning Thief isn't an awful book, it's just not any good. Okay. The concept is creative, but the writing is so sloppy, the dialogue so lame and awkward, and the plot so forced. I want to see what kind of books you actually like. The plot so forced that you end up with the most unimpressive Harry Potter knockoff you can manage. I'll be honest, I hate Twilight, but I think that even that book is better balanced than this one. Riordan is sometimes even offensive. Where? Okay, yeah, I mean, like, if you're talking about the fatphobic stuff, I can understand that. While the adherence to the canonical myth takes liberties, which I think are fine, the Greeks themselves get the shaft. The spirit of the mythology is robbed when replaced with an Ami-Greek hybrid that levels the Upper West Side, the center of the universe. I mean, have you met a New Yorker? It may sound trite, overly sensitive, but honestly, it really hurts the integrity of the mythos, haha, of Riordan's world. Percy himself is annoying, the characters are stock, the feelings... I know he just didn't call Annabeth Chase a stock character. I know he didn't just do that. Fantastic things happen but carry no weight, and the thunder that follows allusions to the great pantheon is cheesy to say the least. I walked out on Jobson a quarter of the way in. This is just one of those times when I'm questioning the world. Zeus is mad right now. Can you hear the thunder? What do y'all think is good writing and dialogue? Because Rick has some of the tightest writing you will find. Like, I go through this and there are not a lot of wasted words. I've read this book more times than I can count. I've had the time to analyze this crap. Okay? I don't... And stop comparing it to Harry Potter! For one thing, Rick would never say some of the things that J.K. Rowling has said. Alex Fierro would be insulted at that comparison. Badly written and very sexist. There's a little bit of sexism when it comes to Sally Jackson. I will agree with that. It bugged me this time around reading it in the very end where her son was telling her how to live her life. Like, we needed a 12-year-old boy to tell this grown woman how to live her life. I understand, yes. Have you met Annabeth? Was Annabeth not in your book? Like, she is one of the most flawed, complicated female characters in literature. Girls Percy doesn't like are all described as ugly and masculine, and it is made sure that the reader knows that masculine traits in a girl or a woman mean that she is evil. The only ones I can think of are like Clarice and Nancy. Maybe Nancy? Clarice is a child of Aries. Of course she's gonna look masculine. You would not think it possible to turn Greek mythology into a conservative American nationalism. Rick Pryor didn't manage even that. I can't be mad about that one. I think Rick would have written his books very differently in 2020. Because there were some places I was like, you know, I mean, some of what Luke's trying to do doesn't sound like a terrible idea. If you're looking to a book for a teenager, do get them something else. Most bricks are better literature than this. Maybe that's why this review is why Jason gets hit by so many bricks. Here's one. I didn't get very far in this book before I set it down. The premise might have worked out to be interesting. I didn't read enough to know. But the narrative style was extremely annoying. Every page grated on my nerves. I could only endure one chapter. Sounds to me like you just don't like kids. Also, I felt that the book was very poor at creating dramatic tension. The main character has a confrontation in the first chapter that is told in the most mundane way possible, even though it's supposed to be thrilling. Kind of the point. Kind of the point. Rick is taking these Greek myths and making them a little bit mundane. Kind of the okay, I agree with this one-star review because it says, the reader for the audiobook did a mediocre interpretation. His two accents can be described as sepulchral or yokel. I agree the narrator for the audiobook is... It's fine. I agree the narrator for the audiobook is kind of trash. I don't like him. He is whiny as can be. He doesn't do a good job. Basically, what we've learned from this is everyone thinks that it's a Harry Potter knockoff, which it's not. Like, did you even read the book? Huh? And they're mad that this book was written the way a middle grade book is written. Do you not read a lot of middle grade, my friends? That is enough of making my blood pressure skyrocket. I'm just